Newsmakers concerning that. We now speak to analyst Dr. Chris De Kock. Thank you very much for joining us on our program today.
Thanks, and thanks to the viewers. Good afternoon to the viewers.
Yeah, let's get your perspective in light of the number of law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty. We're talking about how this can be addressed.
Well, look, officers always die in the line of duty. I must say, the first thing actually is to say that during all these years, from the late 90s, the killing or the murder of police officials were actually at a crisis level of nearly 200. I can remember in 2001, 2002, it was 139. But in the late 90s, it was up to nearly 200. And today, today they commemorate 40 officers. But the last release of crime statistics actually show that 73 police officers were murdered during 2019-2020. Now, I think this is an indication, the fact that it came down over many, many years, is an indication that people should be trained, or they were trained, to be streetwise, to know that there's dangers in certain circumstances, especially when you want to arrest somebody, when you do a surveillance, when you follow a suspect, that you have to be careful and that you know exactly how to stop a vehicle when you follow a suspect, and that you are not vulnerable, and that you wear your bulletproof and all of those things. I think police officers have become more aware of the danger of their job.
So when it comes to restoring trust and good relations with community members without prejudice, how do we restore the dignity of a police officer?
Well, the good relations is basically a different issue. To have good relations with the community, you first have to behave in a way that the community can have respect for you. Now, unfortunately, we have seen in the last weeks, and actually over quite a period of time, that sometimes the police use too much force. During the lockdown, we have seen various incidences where the police overstep their authority, and where they actually use too much force, and that then create a situation that people don't trust the police, that they see the police as the coercive arm of the state, and then you don't have any respect. So respect is something that has to be grown by behavior, by the respect that the police show the community. But if we talk of criminals attacking police officers or firing shots at police officers, there my view is that the police have no other way out than to respond also by force. If a criminal is firing shots at you, your chances of getting hurt or to be killed is quite high, and you have to use equal force in that specific situation.
So when it comes to the interest of community members in as far as, timeous response to emergencies, calling 10-111 or having an emergency or a trauma and desperately needing the police to come help during those emergencies, there's most of the time a delay. And what do members of the community do when they are frustrated? And what should the police do when they say they are not well resourced, they don't have vehicles and so forth?
Yeah, that's also a issue, and unfortunately, it is so that if we look at reaction times, it's not always what it should be, and that the victim is waiting too long for the police to actually do anything to respond. So that is a different issue again. And the police should never have a situation that at the police station there is not enough vehicles to do emergency response. The response, if I've phoned the police station and say I'm under attack. It's during the night, and there's a robber in my garden, and this person, even if I've told him to go away, he is still breaking down the doors and so on. I mean, the police should react. And unfortunately, what we find these days is that in the more wealthier suburbs is that the armed response companies, the security companies, are there first, and then much later the police. But that should not happen, and that is also part of the respect. If the police can't respond, can't protect my life, I will lose respect for them.
What do you think the country should do to restore the dignity of police officers? And I'm asking you in this context. I mean, respect for police officers, as far as the cat and mouse chase that you see during service delivery protests, members of the community standing up against police officers, not trusting them, and other people saying that criminals have them in their bag and in their payroll and so forth. And some of these things that, are very hard to prove, but they are perceived to be there and existent.
Yeah, it's if you look at other countries, if we look at a country like, for example, France, I have seen with my own eyes, and I've read quite a bit about this, that in those countries, respect for the police comes from point number one, that the police are doing a proper job, that they are responding in time, that they get hold of the culprits, the suspects, that they take them to court, and that they get some convictions for different crimes. Now, that is the first thing. You will only have respect for a police service if that police service is very efficient. Secondly, the police should not overstep their powers and misbehave towards the public. And then a third one is to get rid of all the corrupt apples. A corrupt police officer, even if it's only a few apples, if those apples are corrupt and rotten, it all unfortunately tainted the whole police service. So there's a lot to do in South Africa to get our respect back and the dignity back of our police officers.
So now let's look at the interest of the individual police officers. Counseling. Most of them go through serious trauma, and this affects their level of concentration, their level of anger and aggression, even in petty crime situations. That's why you were talking about them using brutal force, and you find that actually this matter is very psycho-emotive. Is there any proper mechanism in terms of dealing with the social aspects of this?
Yeah, look, police unfortunately are subjected to a lot of trauma on a daily basis. They face very, very dangerous situations. But that is unfortunately the job of police officers, and they have some services in the police service where they can go for counseling, where they can go for trauma counseling. So those have to be looked after. If a police officer was in a shootout, those police officers should be checked if they are okay psychologically. If necessary, put them off duty for a short period, give them counseling, and then they can go back. Otherwise, if you don't do those kind of things, that can lead to serious problems. There are many people who refer back to Marikana and what happened at Marikana. Now, the police officers in the week before Marikana was quite traumatized by those images that they saw of those two police officers who were killed a few days before the Marikana shootings. So it is always very, very important to realize that the police officer is also a human being, and that if they get traumatized, it's not a case of, cowboys don't cry. You should look after that trauma, otherwise it can lead to behavior which is unacceptable.
Right. Thank you very much for making time to speak to us here. We're speaking to crime analyst Dr. Chris De Kock, giving us his perspective on the Police National Commemoration Day. Moving on now, those who worked with actress Thandeka Mdleliswa have described her as a person with extraordinary talent. The 34-year-old was popularly known for the role of Kanya in SABC 1.